Alright, so in this video we're going to talk about making relatively simple photographs a lot more dramatic. Now as you can see here, I've got a picture of a surfer that's standing on the beach, and it's a well-composed shot, but I do want to make it a lot more dramatic by applying some effects to it. But here's the thing, I want to apply some effects to the surfer himself individually from the background, or separate from the background. And I also want to apply different effects to the background itself. So what does that mean? That means I need to isolate the surfer from the background. We're going to do that using a simple channel masking technique. So we're going to go into our channels panel, and what we want to do is toggle through each one of the channels and look for the one that has the most contrast from the surfer to the background. And in this case it looks like it's going to be the blue channel, and in the case of most exterior shots it's going to be either the blue or the green channel. So let's go ahead and drag this down and make a duplicate of that channel. Now, when you're inside alpha channels, anything that's white is going to be an active selection, anything that's gray is going to be partially selected, and anything that's black is going to be unselected. Now in this case it looks like most of the surfer is going to be unselected if I load this as a selection, so I need to invert the values of this channel. I'm going to do that simply by pressing Command or Control I. So now I just need to fine-tune this. I need to make the rest of the background completely black and make that the image of the surfer completely white. I'm going to do that using a simple trick that I learned from Katrine Eisman, and that's using the brush tool, but changing the blend mode of the brush to overlay. And what that does, if I go in here and I'm set black as my foreground color, and we'll choose the brush tool, what happens is if I click once and start painting black, it's only going to affect anything that matches that where I initially clicked. So if I go over here into the board, or into the surfer a little bit, I'm painting into his shorts here, but it's not affecting it because it's only affecting where I initially clicked, or it's only going to look for that same tone where I initially clicked, making it a lot easier to stay close to those edge lines. And opposite of that, if I hit my X key and bring the white to the foreground and just click once inside here and begin painting, I'm not releasing my mouse, I'm just continuing to paint all over, but it's only affecting the range of gray that I initially clicked on. So just go all the way around, do that to the entire figure, and we'll end up with our mask. Now, this one I've gone ahead and finished and created for the sake of time. So let's go back into our composite channel, back into our layers, and let's load that channel, or that alpha channel, as a selection. We'll go into the select menu, go down here to load selection, and we want to use alpha 1, new selection. We'll click OK. So there's that active selection. So let's copy this selected area to its own layer. I'm going to press Command or Control J. There you can see in the layers that it is now isolated the surfer. So now we can apply effects to each of these items individually. So let's start with the background. I'm going to highlight that background and I'm going to apply an adjustment layer to this. So we go up here, I'm going to choose Hue Saturation. I'm going to go ahead and click Colorize, and into Hue I'm going to enter 211, and for the saturation I'm going to use 38. And then we'll click OK. Now I'm going to highlight the actual surfer this time, and I'm going to apply a hue saturation to this, but I'm not going to apply it as an adjustment layer because this is a one-time adjustment and I only need to do it once and I won't have to go back and adjust it. So I'm going to press Command or Control U to bring up the hue saturation. Again, click Colorize, and what I want to do is kind of give this a yellowish tint to it. I'm going to go and take the saturation all the way to 50. And we'll put the hue at around 25. And I think that looks pretty good, so we'll go ahead and hit OK. Now, I'm going to go ahead and drag in a duplicate of that surfer layer, but this time I want to remove all the color information. So I'm going to press Shift Command U, that'd be Shift Control U on a PC. And there it's gone ahead and taken away all that color information on this particular layer. But now I'm going to go into the filter menu and go to Artistic. I'm going to go down here to Plastic Wrap. And as you can see, it's giving me a really interesting effect here, and depending on how intense you want this effect to be applied, you can mess with the sliders and change the way the effect is being applied. I think I like that, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. But immediately after I've applied that filter, I'm going to go into the Edit menu, go right here to Fade Plastic Wrap. And what I want to do is apply it as a blend mode. I want to change the blend mode of the filter, which you go in the mode right here. I'm going to change this to overlay. And see, it makes it a little bit more dramatic in there. It's not so light and washed out. And we'll go ahead and click OK. Now, still on that same layer, I'm going to go into the filter menu again, and this time go to Sharpen, Smart Sharpen. And here we're going to give this a tremendous amount of sharpening. You can see it's applied there. I'm going to do it an amount of around 300. And let's do a radius of about 3. And I do believe that looks pretty good, so let's go ahead and click OK. So now you can see what we're getting here. It's a really dramatic effect. But now I want to blend this with that original layer behind it. And I'm just going to do that by changing the blend mode to hard light. And you can see it blends it nicely. It gives me a nice, really dramatic effect there. We're going to intensify that a little bit more by creating a new blank layer right above that active layer. And I'm going to load the selection of the layer beneath it, the shape layer. I'm just going to hold down my Command or Control key and click on the layer directly beneath it to load the surfer image or the surfer shape as a selection. And on that blank layer, I'm just going to press Shift Delete, bring up the fill dialog. I'm going to use 50% gray, just like that. Now, on this very layer, I'm going to double click on the icon to bring up the layer styles. And when you do that, it default opens the blending options window. And inside here, we're going to drop the fill opacity to 0. And what that allows me to do is to completely remove the visibility of anything on the layer, but any layer styles I apply are going to be completely or be 100% visible. So, with that in mind, let's go in here and activate the inner glow. And we'll highlight that and change some settings here. I'm going to take the opacity up to 100. I'm going to change the blend mode to overlay. And then all I'm going to do here is change the source to center. And see what happens there. Look at the difference. Going from edge to center. It's really, really making a big impact here. Then I can increase the size a little bit to close it in on that surfer a little bit. And I do believe that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and hit OK. So that's what we've got so far. All I really need to do now is make the edges a little bit darker, just to give it a little bit more drama to it. So I'm going to do that in between these two layers here. You can really apply it anywhere, but I seem to think that it works between these two. So highlighting this layer here, I'm going to create a new blank layer above that. And I'm going to go into my color picker. I'm just going to click on that foreground color, and let's get a very dark blue color. Really, really dark blue. Not black. Black will look too dark, so I just want to get a really, really dark blue. As you can see, it's a little bit there. We'll click OK. So on that blank layer, I'm going to choose my gradient tool. And inside the gradient editor, I want to choose the second one, which is the foreground to transparent. I'll zoom out my image here. I'm just going to come in from each of the sides of the image and hold down my Shift key to constrain it. I'm just going to come in from the top here. And we'll come in from the side. We'll come in from this side. And we'll come in from the bottom here. So let's give him, it's isolating that surfer a little bit, giving it a little bit more drama. But I'm going to change the blend mode of that layer to multiply so it interacts with the background a little bit. Now, the one thing I'm seeing is that the feet down here, they look out of place. They don't look like they blend in very well. So what we're going to do is mask those out a little bit. So highlighting this layer here that we applied all those filters to, I'm going to create a layer mask. And I'm just going to draw a quick gradient from the bottom up. So we'll make sure that black is my foreground color using the same foreground to transparent gradient we used earlier. And just draw a small gradient inside there. And we'll do the same thing on this image here. On the original isolated surfer, we'll just mask that up a little bit. Blends it in with that blue a little bit, makes it a little bit more, it doesn't look so highlighted down there. And that is pretty much it. All I got to do now at this point is pretty much drop some text in. And there we have it. We've gone ahead and made a really dramatic image from a seemingly simple photograph. If I Option or Alt click directly on the original layer, there you can see was what we started with. If I Option click back on it, right on the eyeball, there's the after. So, give it a try yourself, and I encourage you to try it with other photographs. But the key here is to just experiment. As you can see, one of the points here is that we applied that layer style. And layer styles aren't always just for text or shapes or anything like that. You can actually use them as photographic enhancers in a sense, just to make images a little bit more dramatic. So, there you have it.